A brilliant student who was constantly mocked is beaten by a modified spider and sees his life turn upside down. From then on, he will have to deal with superpowers, villains, and moral dilemmas. What's up, everybody? Demetrius here. Welcome to Fiction Screen. Spider-Man is the most relatable superhero of all time. He's more human, more like us, and that was the revolutionary concept that he brought to the superheroes of the 60s, who up to that point were usually perfect, since they were created to be role models. These characteristics were brilliantly conveyed both in his 90s cartoon and in the movie that inspired this review, the 2002 box office hit Spider-Man. Directed by Sam Raimi, the movie embraced all aspects that make Peter Parker a compelling character and all his growth in the journey to becoming a hero, while also showing us great visual effects, soundtrack, casting, and acting. Right off the bat, in narration, the protagonist asks the viewer, "Who am I?" and states that, like any story worth telling, that one was all about a girl, which will be echoed at the end of the story. Peter was referring to Mary Jane Watson, who dates Flash Thompson, one of the guys who mock him at school. We are then introduced to Peter's best friend, Harry Osborn, and his father, Norman Osborn, a businessman and scientist. Their class is on an excursion at the Columbia University Science Department. There, a genetically designed spider that had gone missing bites Peter, granting him his superpowers. Instead of asking for help, going to a doctor or something, Peter chooses to do nothing, which is kinda strange if you think about it. At Oscorp, a general and some scientists are analyzing Norman's project, which includes a glider, a suit, and human performance enhancers. Unfortunately, tests with such enhancers, carried out on rodents, resulted in violence and mental instability. Norman is told that if he and his team don't succeed in making the project work, their funds will be redirected somewhere else. Meanwhile, Peter arrives home and we are introduced to two important characters, Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Here we have two mirroring scenes. Just as Peter faints due to the fact that the spider's DNA and his own are blending together, a desperate Norman tests the enhancers on himself. As a result, his body gets stronger, but his mind gets unstable, making the Green Goblin, his alter ego, finally show up. The next day, Peter wakes up with new powers. He doesn't need glasses anymore, he's stronger, has superhuman reflexes, and can also shoot webs out of his wrists. Due to the fact that he doesn't know how to use them, he ends up having to fight Flash Thompson, and that's when we have one of the most amazing scenes in the movie. The spider sense was always shown in a cool way, both in the cartoon with a changing background and in the comics where lines pop out of Peter's head. However, this scene takes the concept to the next level. In it, we can see and feel how Peter experiences his superpower. First, he becomes alert. Then, his perception of the environment around him expands. And finally, everything seems to be in slow motion. After winning the fight and trying to figure out his powers, Peter talks to MJ, but she soon leaves to go on a car ride with Flash Thompson, which pressures our hero to try to get money in order to buy a car too. Peter enrolls in a fight competition, intending on using his new powers to win the prize. He tells his uncle and aunt he's going to the library, so Uncle Ben offers to drive him there. As soon as he parks, we have one of the most heartfelt scenes in the movie, one which will change Peter's destiny forever. Uncle Ben says he and his wife have been concerned about what's been going on in Peter's life, and gives him lessons that will guide him in his journey. He warns Peter that he's at a stage of his life when a man changes into the man he's gonna become for the rest of his life, and asks him to be careful who he will change into. He also says that just because he can beat up Flash, that doesn't give him the right to, and finishes with the sentence that would become Spider-Man's motto.
With great power comes great responsibility.
This scene establishes him as Peter's mentor, the one who gives him his moral compass. Just think about a guy with Spider-Man's powers but no morals whatsoever. He could think of himself as being above the law, stealing whenever he wanted, fighting people just for fun, and even eliminating whoever crossed his way. So, in other words, he would act just like the Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, or Venom. That shows how essential Uncle Ben is in Pete's life. After that, Peter goes to fight Bonesaw, the wrestling champion, for the price of $3,000. Man, this movie balances fun and brilliancy in every scene. We understand that the hero is figuring things out in the beginning, but choosing a fighting name such as the Human Spider is just hilarious. It shows how lost he really is. The fight announcer not only tells him it doesn't sound good, but also comes up with the hero's name, paying homage to his first title released in March 1963, just 7 months after the character's debut in Amazing Fantasy issue 15.
The Amazing Spider-Man!
Peter wins the fight, but ends up being deceived by the fight's promoter, and out of revenge doesn't stop the thief who stole the guy's money.
I need that money.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Stop that guy!
Stop it! You could have taken that guy apart.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
He then goes to meet Uncle Ben, but sadly discovers he was shot during a carjack. Peter goes on a desperate pursuit of the criminal and eventually catches him, only to find out he was the same guy who had stolen the fight promoter's money. Thus, he's confronted with the fact that, if he had stopped the guy earlier, his uncle would still be alive. That's when the great power, great responsibility speech finally sinks in. Following Uncle Ben's words, Peter becomes Spider-Man. He suits up and shows up to save the city. Then, we get to see some citizens giving their opinions about him. The hero's popularity causes the appearance of the funniest character in the whole trilogy, J.J. Jameson, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle. He's grumpy, has no patience with people, and his reactions have even become memes. He publishes an ad requesting photos of Spider-Man, so Peter, who needed money and always loved taking pictures, offers to sell his selfies to him. Meanwhile, at Oscorp, Norman finds out that the board plans on ousting him and selling the company, so he becomes the Green Goblin and attacks them during a street celebration. In this scene, we have one of the traditional Stan Lee's cameos. MJ, who had broken up with Flash, was going out with Harry. She's there with him during the attack, and that shows how crazy the Goblin is. He doesn't even care about his own son's safety. Spidey and the Goblin fight for the first time. Unfortunately, the villain beats him up. The hero not only needs to face his enemy, but also has to rescue MJ before the floor collapses. Spider-Man wins the fight and manages to save Mary Jane, thus having a brief romantic moment with her. In his mansion, Norman is confronted by his alter ego, who warns him that Spider-Man is the only one who can stop them. The Goblin suggests that it would be great if Spider-Man joined forces with them. So, the villain attacks the Daily Bugle and inquires Jameson about the identity of the photographer who takes pictures of Spider-Man. Jameson shows his character by protecting Pete's identity. Spider-Man shows up to fight the Goblin, who attacks him with sleeping gas. He asks Spidey to join forces with him, but our hero refuses to do so. The next day, Spidey saves MJ again, and this time they share one of the most iconic cinema scenes, an upside-down kiss. As a side note, this scene was creatively parodied in Shrek 2. Norman kidnaps Mary Jane and a tram car full of children, making Peter choose who to save. Spider-Man struggles to keep everyone safe, while also having to fight the Goblin. The New York citizens confront the villain, making it clear they are on Spider-Man's side. It's time for the hero and the villain to have their final fight. Norman starts off having the upper hand and almost knocks out Spidey. The hero reacts by shooting his web, but it doesn't work. The villain keeps on beating him and then decides to threaten MJ. That's when Peter stands up and punches him repetitively, getting close to defeating him. The Goblin shows him his true identity in an attempt to trick him. However, the spider sense kicks in and Peter dodges the villain's glider, thus winning the fight. In his final moments, Norman asks him not to tell Harry about his alter ego. Unfortunately, as he takes Norman's body to his mansion, Harry sees them and concludes that Spider-Man was responsible for that. At Norman's funeral, Harry promises to get his revenge from Spider-Man. MJ finally professes her love for Peter, who lies to her and says he doesn't love her, intending on protecting her. As he leaves, he ponders about Uncle Ben's words and once again asks, "Who am I?" This time, his answer is different. "I'm Spider-Man," he concludes, echoing the first scene. The movie ends with some final amazing shots of the hero swinging through New York, keeping the city safe. This is one of the best superhero movies ever made, having made a huge impact on pop culture and having introduced the character to crowds and crowds of new fans. So that's it guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons and activate the bell for notifications. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite scenes are. Thanks for watching the video, see you!